We got no new GPUs, no Steam machine prices. AI took everything by Bellular News. He makes some great videos, as you guys know. So let's get into this one.
By now, a thought's probably crossed your mind. Aren't we supposed to know how much a Steam machine should cost? And the answer is, yeah, we were supposed to know. But
and you know what really sucks about this whole thing? There's people like me that are out there that just want, like, they don't even want the Steam machine. They just want the Steam controller or the Steam VR. I mostly just want the Steam controller, but it's like they're waiting for everything to be together so that way they can release it all at once. But I'm like, bro, I just want the controller, man. Just release the controller at least.
Steam machine was announced before the memory crisis started interfering with Valve's plans, and it's interfered with everyone's plans.
Yeah.
PlayStation and Nintendo are both reassuring investors that they can actually secure their hardware. Nvidia.
And if you guys don't know as well, oh man, who was it? Let me find it real quick for you guys, because this also has to do with this video. But basically, there's a company. Is it Western Digital? They've basically had all of their hard drives, not SSDs, hard drives that they would produce this year. Yeah, here it is. Oh, Western Digital. Yeah, that's what I said, I think. Check this out. Western Digital's HDD production capacity for 2026 is fully sold out. Firm orders from top customers cover the entire year with long-term agreements extending into 2027 and 2028. That is unreal. So AI took all the hard drives even. This is wild, from Western Digital at least.
Are taking a different approach. If you don't announce new hardware, then you never need to secure the components. What we see is memory pricing, storage pricing, all those things have been surging across the industry for months. Thus far, it shows no sign of slowing down. And the companies driving that surge, well, they are just trying to keep their hundreds of billions of dollars in investment flowing. And that is interfering with all of our plans. Valve just gave us the clearest picture yet of how much this uncertainty is impacting gaming. In November, when the Steam machine,
By the way, the video is not too low, right?
And the new controller were revealed, they suggested we get a release date and a price in early 2026. Then AMD CEO,
I think it's probably going to get pushed back. The pricing for the Steam machine and the Steam machine as a whole, it'll probably get pushed back.
Stoked speculation further. She talked about Valve being, quote, on track to begin shipping its AMD-powered Steam machine early this year. Obviously, it is currently early this year, and there's really no sign in sight. And after Lisa Su spoke, Valve stepped in to perform some damage control. A new blog post made things unfortunately clear. Basically, we don't know anything yet. Valve say they wanted us to know by now, but, quote,
when we he's going to quote
the memory and storage shortages you've likely heard about across the industry have rapidly increased since then. That means Valve are reconsidering their shipping schedule and their pricing in light of the market conditions, though they're still intending to ship.
In before the console guys go, oh, see, this is why you don't buy a PC, bro. And it's like, no, man, you're going to get hit with this too. Your console, the Steam machine and the console might end up being about the same price. Why? Because they both need RAM. They both need RAM.
In the first half of the year. And that would align with Lisa Su's comments, but it maybe isn't as early 2026 as some people hoped. Now, it's not a surprise that Valve's partners with these devices aren't being left in the dark, but players are a different story. We are not going to find out about prices until the very last moment possible. And that's all because securing the components at practical prices is becoming harder and harder than ever. And it is very much not just Valve. First, though,
and I do believe Valve will probably take a hit on their profit margin when it comes to the Steam machine in hopes to make it up through the Steam store, Steam sales, etc., right? And the reason why I say that is because Xbox does that. Xbox does where they sell their console at a loss in hopes to make it up through like Game Pass, Xbox Live, and obviously having to buy games through their storefront. So I wonder if Steam might sell the Steam machine at a loss as well. And I wonder at how much of a loss are they willing to cut so that way the consumer can get a somewhat fair price due to the market.
So something that ties back to our previous coverage, because in this video we learned how game spending is falling, but subscriptions on games are actually rising. Too often, we don't use those subs, and that's why Rocket Money is today's sponsor, because they make it easy for you to just get a handle on your subscriptions and save money. And you can get started for free today at rocketmoney.com/Ballular.
If you gamble, you might need Rocket Money so you can see how much you're gambling and losing. Just throwing that out there.
Rocket Money will securely and safely identify recurring charges for you. You can then just cancel them with just a few taps. They've put the work in to make the UI and everything really smooth and easy. So if this is a chore you
cancel your gambling addiction.
Just, get Rocket Money and do it. Now's the time. Now, they'll also help you with bill negotiation, where you just upload your bill and they'll be able to help you out. I mean, a personal example for me, it's my go-to, is whenever my internet went to its off-contract price, I got on the phone. They initially denied me, but I was able to negotiate a speed upgrade and a halving of my monthly bill. So you can get that kind of thing too. And the thing is, I could have got that months earlier, but life got in the way. And that's the huge value of Rocket Money. They make all this stuff really easy. Now, they've canceled over $880 million worth of subscriptions. They've helped their customers save up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. They've got other great tools beyond what I've mentioned. So if you want to spend less and save more, sounds pretty good to me. Join the over 10 million Rocket Money members today at rocketmoney.com/Ballular, or just click the link below. You can get started for free and unlock more features with premium. rocketmoney.com/Ballular. In both Nintendo and PlayStation's earnings calls, they talked about this whole component crisis and how much it's hitting them. For PlayStation, their CFO, Lin Tao, preemptively told investors that they've gotten ahead of the memory game. That PlayStation managed to, quote, secure the minimum quantity necessary to manage the year-end selling season of next fiscal year. So
I also wonder, because they're doing the leasing thing, at least in the UK with the console, I wonder how much they'll be able to save by leasing out the console on RAM and whatnot. And I also wonder how many people are actually going to subscribe to that service. I do wonder, because that will save them some kind of money without having to produce new consoles, since people are just leasing them, unless there's just so much demand that they need to give more consoles to the company that's leasing it for them. But I digress.
Basically, that just means they've secured their supplies until April 2027, and they now have got negotiations underway for demand after that date.
Wow.
So that's PlayStation sorted, but over with Nintendo, their president, Shuntaro Furukawa's first question from investors was whether profitability would be impacted and whether price rises were coming. Of course, we all know that, kind of unlike a lot of other companies, Nintendo don't really want to sell their hardware at a loss. They like to make margin on everything. Yeah. It's why their devices have historically been so tightly cost controlled, often to their detriment. Looking at you, Nintendo Switch. But he did explain that in the third and fourth quarters, they didn't see
Nintendo might be the greediest gaming company out there. It just might be.
Any impact on profit.
There are other contenders, but I think Nintendo takes the cherry.
And no price rise.
Or the ice, whatever it is, whatever the saying is.
Quote, if this rise in component prices lasts longer than expected and runs through the next fiscal year and beyond, it may put pressure on profitability.
Wow.
So what that means is, if you're considering buying a Switch 2, you are probably fine for the near future, but we don't know how things are going to be after that. And to be in an industry where our consoles are getting more expensive over time is just insane.
Xbox.
That is completely
Xbox keeps going up in price as well, which is crazy.
And it's all because right now the short term is relatively stable. That's because contracts have been established and those contracts will be met. All these companies already secured their supply before this whole shitstorm happened. At least the massive volume manufacturers like PlayStation and Nintendo. But as the component manufacturers are getting more and more opportunities to guarantee data center contracts and more profitable production, well, their priorities are shifting. And that, unfortunately, may be a long-term change. So to translate that into what will matter to us, well, both the console manufacturers and their players are becoming lower priority to the companies who fundamentally make the hardware. And
I mean, to be fair, I always felt like the player was always on the lower end of priority. It's always the shareholder that has the higher priority anyways. That's just the nature of the beast, I guess. And it's always been that way, and I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
That means that the big businesses that the likes of us are used to are just small fry when compared.
That's why all these gaming companies feel so out of touch, because they just keep doing things for shareholders rather than for the consumer. And that's why Steam keeps winning, because they do the complete opposite.
To the AI boom. As an example, just take a look at the XAI Colossus 2 data center. It's planned, it's not like being built yet, or maybe it is being built, but it's not going to.
Frontier data centers, OpenAI, Stargate, Abilene, that's in Texas. Annual average power use of Los Angeles. Oh my goodness. It's all going to use almost the same amount of power as Los Angeles. What about Anthropic? Almost the same amount of power as, it's like in between San Diego and Amsterdam. That's still crazy, because San Diego still has a lot of people. And this one is going to be just under Amsterdam. That's insane.
Be coming online for a while, but the size of that thing boggles the mind, and there are.
Look how big this is. 200,000 GPUs, 122 days, 100K GPUs, fully training synchronously from scratch. 92 days to expand to 200,000 GPUs. 200,000 GPUs. What an insane number.
Further and larger data centers planned. So with that in mind, why would Nvidia go the entirety of 2026 without releasing a new graphics card?
And you got to think, that's not even the biggest one, bro. Let me go back to that graph. Oh, go back one more. Right here, we got, whose is this? This is OpenAI. I wonder how much, how many, this is probably like 350,000, maybe 375,000 GPUs. This is crazy.
Centers planned. So with that in mind, why would Nvidia go the entirety of 2026 without releasing a new graphics card for the gamers? The answer is fairly obvious, but according to the information, citing two sources, the 5070 Super that everyone expected to see at CES has been indefinitely delayed.
Wow.
So yes, it seems that the rumor cycle for that thing teased people and teased people and teased people, and now you're all blue balls. Then you'll probably have to buy a card that won't be as good of a deal as you hoped, which blows.
Yeah.
And basically, the GDDR7 memory that would have powered that card is simply too valuable to use on something for the gamers, because
that's crazy.
You can go in a data center GPU. And that actually is just the start, because there's a suggestion that the planned production run for NVIDIA's next generation, 60 series, may not begin in 2027 as planned.
They usually go like, what is it, like every 2-3 years, and they get a new line of GPUs. It's probably going to be 2028, maybe 2029, depending on how much these AI data centers grow, or if they plan to even open up more after they've completed their plans next year for the ones that are in production or whatever.
To guarantee the component contracts will be in place for the next 2 years. But what about the people who are locking down those contracts? Well, they're getting into pissing matches with each other across the press, which is at least kind of funny. So thus far in the video, almost nothing we've talked about is actually about producing the components.
Nvidia versus OpenAI.
It's all about the contract, right? It's about companies locking down manufacturing windows at affordable prices, trying to predict demand, and of course, especially doing that for AI data center production. So when Nvidia seemingly reneged on a $100 billion deal with the ChatGPT people, OpenAI,
is the bubble starting to burst? I wonder. The $100 billion mega deal between OpenAI and Nvidia is on ice.
Alarm bells started ringing. So the Wall Street Journal broke this story, and basically, the memo of understanding, which was signed back in 2025, was that Nvidia would invest $100 billion into OpenAI, and that would help pay for 10 gigawatts of compute, all running on chips leased from Nvidia. Now, you did follow that correctly. It did look like Nvidia was spending money that would go straight back to Nvidia.
Right.
And since then, Nvidia have seemingly tried to cool the deal at that scale. Reuters cited 7 sources saying that OpenAI weren't happy with Nvidia's chipsets for the type of processing they actually cared about, which is part of why they're seeking deals with other manufacturers. And that is where things get
And what's the other manufacturer? The only other manufacturer is AMD, as far as I'm aware, in terms of the chips that they're needing.
Interesting. As an example,
Oh, I guess there is
Grok,
Intel now because they do make GPUs as well. But I mean, the point still remains. I don't think anything is as strong as Nvidia's.
dedicated inference hardware, so essentially purpose-built chips that can outperform, say, Nvidia GPU on some of the data center specific tasks. You
Oh,
could
okay.
perhaps think about this as being similar to when Bitcoin mining, or just crypto mining in general, shifted off being done on GPUs and started being done on ASICs, which basically were just more fixed function hardware to solve those specific problems. Right? So that's the sort of thing that could interrupt Nvidia's business. And if you take a look at the rest of the industry, well, one of the big strengths that Google have got over OpenAI is Google's TPUs. They can run loads of Gemini inference on their own hardware.
Yeah, they have their own hardware. I forgot Google is able to do that.
Reasons like that are why OpenAI were maybe not particularly thrilled.
I feel like Google foresaw this kind of happening, and that's kind of why they started making their own chip, because I remember they started making their own chip for phones and stuff too. So they probably foresaw this happening. What up, Bo? And they probably pivoted. And I wonder, I don't think this is necessarily why Apple did it either, but I think there is a portion of the reason for that as well. And I also believe they didn't want to be super reliant on Intel either.
The Nvidia offering,
and also to keep up their own profit margins, but
spelled with a Q,
that's a whole different thing.
So a different Grok to the one on Twitter. It's why they were apparently close to finalizing a deal with OpenAI, and then Nvidia sniped them, hiring their talent at a reported cost of $20 billion.
Oh wow!
So yeah, that's basically acquiring a direct competitor before they could lock in a major client.
Yep.
In reaction to this, stock prices dropped, and what followed was nothing less than collective performance art. Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang recalled the reports as complete nonsense about, reneging on the deal, and he doubled down on how happy Nvidia was with OpenAI. Sam Altman did likewise, saying that he doesn't get, quote, where all this insanity is coming from, because Nvidia makes, quote, the best AI chips in the world. Even OpenAI's other investors like Oracle began to performatively and seemingly unpromptedly making statements about how this whole thing would have zero impact on their relationship, and how they were, quote, highly confident that the company could still raise money and meet its commitments. But what we're mostly seeing here, right, is a bunch of publicly listed companies and their chosen cash cows circling the wagons, trying to protect their investments and their stock price.
Because they don't want the money. They don't want the bubble to burst. Because they know nobody wants this garbage. But we're getting the garbage.
Because rumors like this spook investors. And that is not great for companies who are trying to monetize niche research and limited use cases.
Because that's what matters most, is the investors. Okay? If the investors lose $1, it's the end of the world.
In a way that justifies absurd valuations. Some have suggested that all of this chaos will mean more options for players like you,
No.
There can be chaos, a bubble can burst, and then there's some, creative destruction that's good for the consumer. And that very often is the case. But here, it doesn't seem
it's not going to happen.
You need to understand that the scale we're dealing with here is truly gargantuan. Multinational corporations making deals for hundreds of billions of dollars, all to keep components flowing into data centers that have not yet been built.
Because the data centers, this is kind of where, this is kind of like what this feels like. Remember, in China, they did that whole real estate thing where like they were building and selling homes before the building was even built. Like there was just plans for the building. And then what ended up happening is these buildings would even get finished. So these people just have paid and got a mortgage for these buildings that they're not even living in and are unlivable or in unsafe conditions because they're just not complete. And I feel like this is kind of what's happening here, right? I'm sure the data centers will get complete. I think this is a whole different type of thing that it will get complete. But the point remains, right? We're buying things that don't even exist yet for something that could be derailed and even set back. And then everyone is paying for it because it's never the businessman that or the company or whatever that takes the brunt end of it. It's you and I. It's always the consumer base. Bano is actually homophobic. Oh nah, that's crazy.
Now, a normal use case,
That's
like,
crazy.
for example, buying memory to produce consoles or Steam machines, maybe 10 million Steam machines if you're gonna have a crazy big number, that's still minuscule in proportion. And Valve are in a particularly messy position here, because Steam machines, like Steam Decks, are sold directly from Valve's store.
Yep.
They won't be mass marketing the devices, they won't be produced in such a similar way, in the way that, say, Nintendo and PlayStation can for their things. And that means Valve are going to be requesting less product, less manufacturing than the likes of PlayStation. You see, PlayStation are guaranteed the components that they need through to next April because they've already signed those contracts. And in this quarter alone, they sold like 8 million consoles.
Wow.
It's even on a declining trend. Still 8 million. By comparison,
that's a lot,
Valve
though.
are estimated to have sold around 4 million Steam Decks over 3 years as of early 2025. And I'm sure that number is a good bit higher now.
And I think, and I do think, I think the handheld market is still growing yet. If it wasn't, or if they didn't have predictions that it was growing, I feel like all these other companies that are making handhelds wouldn't get into it, you know? But I do think the handheld market is still growing. And as people get, like, as maybe even as like teenagers get older and parents are, you know, and parents are like, oh, well, I don't think my kid should have a full-fledged PC just yet, you know, then maybe they'll look at the handheld market and be like, okay, this is like a nice happy medium, you know? So I do think there's going to be a lot of growth with this part of the industry, but I don't think it'll ever be as big as like the console industry between Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo.
But as you can see,
well, I guess Nintendo is kind of technically a handheld, but my point remains. I would classify it more as a console that can turn into a handheld.
The gap in leverage between Valve and a Nintendo or a PlayStation is huge. And it means that Valve cannot use scale to keep prices down. And unlike some of those other products that could be seen as a loss leader, or maybe the Steam Deck, which really will, in the most case, only be used for buying things in Steam, the Steam machine is just going to be a desktop computer that can do things.
Yeah.
If they were to sell that at a loss, they would get eaten alive by business customers who are not interested in buying games on Steam where Valve gets a cut. So long term, Valve needs
that's
to
true. I didn't
secure
even think about that.
contracts to properly price their products, and that means muscling their way into a market that is far more interested in the other larger players that are flush with cash and are literally dumping that cash into the likes of, say, the Nvidias and the memory suppliers.
They're in a tough spot. They're in a tough spot because they really want to deliver something to this niche market when the entire market doesn't want to deliver to that niche market, you know? And by niche market, I mean the gamers.
Just so they can have.
I mean, and you got to think about it from a business perspective too. If you're a chip manufacturer, why would you want to sell to Steam, who is going to only sell to, you know, like a very small amount of people, when you could just sell to an AI data center that's going to buy hundreds of millions of dollars worth of your product? I mean, it's like, that's like, I don't know. I don't have a good comparison off the top of my head right now, but you get the point.
The gear that they need, but so that they can get the contract so that one of their opponents doesn't. Remember the headlines of our good friend Sam Altman securing like 40% of the DDR5 supply for the next like few years, I think until 2028? Yeah, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, that won't help us. The downstream impact then. For you and me, this likely means it'll be a while before we hear Steam machine pricing or a release date. That's just like how we're unlikely to see commercial PC part price.
I don't think we get a price for the Steam machine until maybe late this year. I genuinely think so. I think it's going to get pushed back that far.
Ease up. That probably won't happen. You're probably not going to see a 5070 Ti anytime soon, or even a 60 series. Estimates suggest that this surge may continue, and those estimates exist even though the cracks in the huge AI investment narrative that have been covered in this video are, you know, still sort of priced into that expectation. Because yeah, a lot will be wasted, but the bet is that the stuff that actually works will be worth it. And you can maybe see in some use cases, like some coding, engineering stuff, and a few other use cases, really instances where the AI stuff can be fairly useful. Just that, you know, the infinite slop feed of Sora
What in the world?
is probably not one of those things, yet it still takes a shitload of data center to serve. So
you know what's funny? I see like these videos on Twitter all the time when I'm trying to find stuff to talk about, and it'll be like my RAM is priced at $2,200 for 32 gigabytes because of this, and it'll be like the most stupid video I've ever seen.
Messy. And I'd say here's the part that should probably make you angry. A third of users have no interest in the AI features on their devices. You can't buy a graphics card because of demand for a product.
I mean, and it's true. I mean, like, bro, it's basically a glorified email writer, right? My mom, right? She's Gen X, you know, she's in her 50s. And she told me she uses AI literally just to like draft emails for her at work, and that's it. Like, she has no other use for it other than that. And she said, like, I don't even really need it for that. She's just like, it just makes it faster. Most people don't have a use for AI. I mean, this says 1/3, but I think most people don't.
That a third of consumers don't actually want. The bickering and maneuvering that we're watching is the dominant manufacturers reckoning with that reality. And when the consequences of all this circular funding popping up the stock market finally hits, the impact won't stay contained to the companies that built this house of cards. It never is contained. That's going to hurt everyone. Because look, what if you're invested in the S&P 500, maybe as a part of your pension fund? Well, that thing may experience some issues because of the amount of top concentration within the index that has been driven by.
And then what happens there is it puts more strain on the social programs, because, you know, like, and on older people, because, like, imagine, you know, you have somebody that's got their 401k, they're getting ready to retire, and then the market collapses, right, because of this, and now they need now they have to continue to work, or or whatever, because they don't have enough in their 401k to retire. And it'll put more, and then people will lose their jobs because the stock market's not in a good place, et cetera, and then it puts even more strain on the social programs and the economy
of these companies.
It's
your Microsoft.
It's never just an isolated incident.
Now, this is not me saying it's a total waste of time. As an example, take a look at the dot-com bubble. The dot-com bubble happening did not mean that the internet was useless. It meant that the ways in which the internet was being used, or was planned to use by a bunch of those companies, was useless. A lot of that stupid investment blew up and went nowhere. The internet continued on and was extremely useful.
And that's what's happening basically now.
Large language models, diffusion models, any of that stuff. There probably are going to be a great many use cases for this technology. I think we're seeing some early signs of that right now. Hint, it's probably not you having a co-pilot button on your computer. That is probably here and will.
That's taking a screenshot. That's taking a screenshot of something that you're doing every 10 seconds.
Mean that some of that technology is not useful in the future. It doesn't mean that it won't grow big in the future. But what it does mean is that right now, there's a lot of speculation on where the value will be. A lot of that speculation is going to be misplaced. And that's going to mean you can't buy a GPU because countless acres of land crammed with GPUs are being used to make slop videos on Sora. Something which I think is fundamentally useless.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you know what else it does? It just ruins your attention span too, because it's just creating slop. And it's what's going to happen is there's going to be such a rise of people that enjoy the slop that it's actually going to bring down other forms of like genuine or good entertainment, because they're going to be like, well, most people like this, so why do we need to put as much money into this when we could just produce this, you know? And it's like, okay, it's just going to kind of diminish everything. I don't think it'll stay like that forever, but that will happen at some point, and we're already seeing it.
Kind of shit for gaming, actually. There's no real way to get around that. But hey, they do have all these data centers full of GPUs. I guess they can just rent those GPUs back to us in the form of game streaming. You'll own nothing and be happy. That's it for this video.
Oh yeah,
See you
and I
next
also think
time.
that's yeah, like he said, the game streaming thing. I also think that's a part of the reason why all this is happening, because they want you to be on the game streaming, because then you won't own anything, and then you'll just be running off of the AI data center. So they get to make even more money off of you. That's just how it be, you know? That's just how it be.